had something kind of interesting. Last night, today is Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. So last night I went and looked at a car for my wife, a new car, and it was a full-size SUV. So anybody that's shopping for, full-size SUVs at this time, knows that they're expensive. Like even a mid-model, they're just expensive. There's no way around it. I was looking at the time at the Nissan Armada, the new one that just came out for 2025. They did like a refresh. So we were kind of looking at that, maybe like the Toyota Sequoia. We drove one of those. So we wanted to kind of compare this to it. And they had two of them at this dealership that we were going to. I had earlier in the day, I had found them. One was like the Pro 4X, which is their off-road package. And then they had like the top of the line one, which is like the Platinum Reserve, which is a little bit more, it's luxurious versus like off-road of the Pro 4X. I knew my wife would like the look of the Pro 4 better, but I figured she might like some of the options on the Platinum. So we wanted to look at them both, compare them. We got there last night, had the kids with us, and it worked out nice because they were like right next to each other. So the sales guy came out, introduced himself, and brought the keys out. We did just that, kind of looked at them. My wife took the Pro 4X off the table right away because it was missing some options, and it had like solid center seat, so it was kind of hard to get to the third row. You had to climb over it or like bring the seat forward, which wasn't going to work with car seats. Whereas like the higher model had jump seats in the middle or captain's chairs, so you could walk through the middle, which is kind of what she wanted for my oldest daughter to get to the back seat. So she took that one for a ride around the parking lot, and then when she came back, the guy scanned my license and I took it out on the road. And that's kind of, in my opinion, where it kind of went south, and kind of the whole point of the video. While we were driving, the sales guy, who was an older, I think he said he was like 62, so he's a little bit older. He was like, are you sure that you can afford this vehicle? And I told him that, which I was a little bit offended by it, but I kind of didn't take much to it. And I just told him, I said, yeah, I knew what the price range was before we drove out here. I wasn't going to drive out here without knowing that. And, the cars that we have been looking at are in this price range. Like, if you want a full-size SUV, this is the price that they cost new these days. And, this vehicle, because it just came out, the refresh for 2025, not like you can find, a used one. So I told him, no big deal, like, fine, my wife has a good job, I have my own business, and I also do I didn't say RV transportation, but I said I do transportation as well as my own business. So I kind of left it at that. But as like the night progressed, he asked like, 3 or 4 more times, are you sure you can afford this, and that? And it kind of clicked to me, I don't really dress like nice, but I don't dress bad. Like, my clothing is clean, but I'm typically the type that's wearing like, cargo pants, maybe some jeans, and a hoodie at this time of the year. So I think maybe that's what it was like my look, because then he kept bringing up like the blue collar, which I am. I've always been blue collar, but you can make a lot of money doing blue collar jobs, whether it be owning my own power washing business, or even like the RV transport or any of the trades. Like, you can make good money, that was, so I kind of chalked it up to like, okay, he sees I'm wearing like a Carhartt sweater, a hat, and some cargo pants, and he's thinking maybe I just don't have any money, even though my wife was dressed nicely because she came straight from work, and she has to dress nice for work, but that's kind of the point of the video, was that I was a little bit offended, and when I was thinking about it, I was like, yeah, like, if I chose to buy this vehicle and I needed to make extra money for it, it would literally just be running an extra RV transport load per month. Like that's what I would have to do. And that's really a decision that I would have to make is buying this new vehicle worth one more day of work a month? And that's, not that I would have to work that one extra day to make the payment, but if I wanted to make the payment without, affecting the current lifestyle, then it would be, one more day of work per month, or, one more day of work within my business during the busy time. Like, during my busiest times of the year, I'm making thousands of dollars a day in my own business, so it's not hard for me to make those kind of payments, and then the night kind of went south after that anyways. They were trying to lowball me on my trade-in, trying to get me to take the vehicles they had in stock, even though it wasn't exactly what my wife wanted. At first they didn't want to give me a trade-in because I wasn't going to buy the one that's sitting right there on their floor. I was of the understanding that if I wanted to, I could order a new vehicle or they could do a dealer transfer, and it didn't seem like they were open to doing either one of those. They really were just trying to push what they had there, which I told them right off the bat, like, if it's not the right color and doesn't have the right options, we're not going to settle for it. It's way too much money to be settling. So eventually they were able to find one. If we wanted it, they can get transferred. But we couldn't agree on like a trade-in price. And then, I always tell my wife, like, we're not buying the day of. We're going to go look at it, and then the negotiation process starts. But yeah, I won't buy a vehicle from them now anyways, just because I think it was a shady sales tactic and a little bit rude, the way that they kind of came off. And when I went to the other dealership to drive the Toyota, like I was dressed fairly similar, because that's just, like I said, how I dress this time of year. And there was no comments about like whether or not you can afford the vehicle or anything like that. So I think there's something to be said about that when you're shopping, like just the salesperson having respect for you and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I just want to make that video because I guess there's not really a point to making the video, but I kind of thought it was odd that someone would, judge a book by the cover so much. And like I said, it's not like I'm wearing ripped up, dirty clothes. Like, it's all clean, no stains or anything. And yeah, and then when I was thinking about it, I thought, like, that's literally one RV transport load more a month if I really wanted to do it. And you're talking 1 out of 30, 31 days a month that I would work to make a payment and have that vehicle. So that's kind of like goes back to some of like the beauty of RV transport is you're kind of in control of how much money you make. Like, I only do 3 to 4 days a week. I've never done more than 4 loads in one week, which all of my loads have been capable of doing in one day. Whether I do them in one day or not, because sometimes I would bring them home and then take them the next day, just depending on what my schedule has. But all of my loads can be done in one day and home, one shift. It's following all DOT regulations. So that's kind of what I was thinking. Was it's kind of nice that when you think about it like that, where it's like, you're your own boss. If you need to make extra money, you just got to work a little bit harder and work a little bit more hours. And you're really in control of how much money you make as long as there's loads there. And, obviously if it's slow and there's no loads, then you can't make that extra money. But I've only had 1 week since I started RV Transport where I didn't have work. And that was the first week of 2025. Because all the manufacturers closed down the last 2 weeks of the year for the end of the year, and they take that first week to get caught back up and get units out there. So, and I could have spread out. I kind of ran hard at the end of the year. I could have spread that out. Maybe instead of running 4 loads a week during Christmas and New Year's, maybe I run 3 and then I have 2 loads that first week in January. But it doesn't really matter. I made the same amount of money either way. Now I know for next year, hey, you're probably going to be off that first week in January because they got to play catch up. I didn't know, and I'll probably schedule a vacation around that time. So, but yeah, let me know what your thoughts are if you had an interaction like that with like a car salesman or any salesman in general. Like, you know, if you've had those interactions, if you're similar to me and you're going to wear a Carhartt hoodie and a hat, you know, you get treated differently. I just think it's kind of funny. Now, you know, I was a little bit irritated last night. Now I can look back on it and laugh a little bit about it, and you know, chalk it up to if I end up buying that car, I'll just buy it from a different dealership. It's not the end of the world. But at the time, I was thinking, I'm like, I'm at a Nissan dealer. I'm not trying to buy a Lamborghini. Like, you know, I guess if I was buying, I probably wouldn't. I mean, to be honest, like even if I was buying a Lamborghini, I probably wouldn't dress any differently. You know, I've had experiences like that in the past. Unfortunately, like when I bought my wife a Land Rover a while back, and I kind of got treated that way at the Land Rover dealer. Back then, I was in manufacturing, and I, you know, still dressed the way I dress now, pretty much. And I feel like, you know, my wife brought it up too. She was like, "Well, you remember when we bought that Land Rover? That's kind of how we got treated as well." At the time, I think some of it was because I was younger. Now I'm not that young, but maybe young. I'm young compared to the guy that was selling to me, and maybe he was just judging by maybe he can't afford it, and surprised that someone half his age can afford it. But yeah, that's kind of my experience. I wanted to put it out there and just get what, you know, people's thoughts are on it. Maybe I'm looking too far into it. Maybe I shouldn't have got offended at all by it. Maybe it's a question that they have to ask. I just was surprised he asked 3 or 4 times. You know, and yeah, that's pretty much the scope of the video. And I don't know if I'm gonna put that out today, or maybe it'll be out in a few days, but we'll see. I'd like to hear in the comments what people think